What is up?
Let's it start to record like it's still starting to. Yeah, it's started to record. What's up, bro? Long time no see. I really wanted to talk to you. So
There I am. What's up, bro?
like today's topic is like Thelemic summoning of demons. So audience already knows who you are. This interview will be uploaded after the first one.
Go,
because I
go.
didn't upload the first one yet, but it will be uploaded after the first. So can you tell us like about Thelemic summoning of demons, how it works, how it operates, when
Yeah,
it
yeah.
works with
So basically in Thelema, the idea of summoning is not too different from other ceremonial magic traditions. The main difference would be that Aleister Crowley and S.L. Mathers, they worked on a version of the Goetia. I'm not 100%, but I believe it might have been one of the first English published versions. I'm not 100% sure about that though. And within the book itself, it's, just tells you all about, cleansing and how to summon and things like that. But I would just say from a basic thelemic point of view, as far as summoning goes, it's very personal. It is not uncommon within the community of Thelemites that summoning demons would mainly be for psychological uses, not just, hey, let me summon one to get me extra money, or let me summon a demon to get revenge on somebody for me. Um, Baneful magic is allowed because it's do what thou wilt. Basically, do whatever your will tells you to do, whatever you feel. If you have contact with your HGA, things like that. But for me personally, demonic summoning is mainly for working with the darker aspects of myself. So because I see them as the old gods, the elder gods, not so much like fallen angels. I don't see them like that personally. So that's my view of it. So an example will be um within like within magic for myself, it's always a deep spiritual practice to hopefully refine and better certain parts of myself. So if I want to be a more courageous person, if I want to have less fear, if I want to go beyond those kinds of ideas, um, I would just summon demonic forces to help me look at that within myself, that I can go beyond that in time. So that's more of my uses. I haven't, to be honest, I've never summoned one to get me something, to get me something material. It's always been for to help. It's always been more of the invocations, summoning to help me perform better in the world and things like that. Because that means a lot to me. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not against people using demons for those purposes. Like if they want to get, you want to buy a house or something like that. I've heard lots of stories. I've met people who have summon various spirits for that, various demons for that. I'm not against that. I just magic is for me. It's at least 90% for myself, to better myself, to change my awareness and consciousness, and then the other small percentage will be for to help me find my way around the world materially, but not so much. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay. I know I'm talking a lot, but
That's why you are here, man. That's why
yes.
you are here. So let's, for example, let me ask you, can you kind of tell the audience how you started working with demons, but like your kind of personal experience with them, how it went through which stages, etc. Because you are one of those people who work with them in a more traditional way, and
Mhm.
I think you are pretty good in like helping people to understand the misconceptions about ceremonial magic today, because
Thank you. Thank you.
people have an opinion that
Yeah.
somehow ceremonial magic is anti-demonic, and that it is
Right.
somehow anti-spirits and I don't see that attitude actually with ceremonial magicians. Majority of ceremonial magicians I follow,
Hmm.
if you even like Freighter Xavier on YouTube, you probably watch
Yeah.
Mind and Magic. Like, who doesn't watch Freighter Xavier? And
Yes.
even if you like watch his depictions of his goetic rituals, he like uses the god names for the spirits to
Hmm.
appear from the
Hmm.
right-handed perspective. That's true. But even he, when the spirit comes, treats spirit with respect, right? He
Hmm.
treats them with respect, and he sometimes even gives offerings and shit.
Hmm.
So even he, who is like more extreme ceremonial magician, like on a more extreme right-hand spectrum, even he respects spirit he summons. So I really want you to kind of help me to debunk this misconception that ceremonial magic is anti-spirits. And
Yeah, I honestly, that's one of the things that I try to clear up on my podcast as well. Two things that I try and clear up on my podcast. One, that ceremonial magic is not only what some would just deem more right hand path, angelic workings, and not the shadow or not the infernal spirits. And then the other misconception that people have about ceremonial magic is that it's just too much cosplay. You know, wearing robes and you always like doing like ridiculously long, drawn out rituals for hours on end. And it's, you know, it's not so much like that. Like, yes, there's preparation involved in certain rites, but it's not all like that. But I mean, I think like one of the more traditional rites that we can talk about for a little bit is the Abramelin ritual, which I have not performed, but I read a lot about it. I read a lot about it. Um, you summon demons in that one, and that is clearly a ceremonial magic, right? You know, so I mean, that right there, I think that right alone debunks. But I think also one of the issues people have is because when we're talking about ceremonial magic, what is the first thing people think of? They probably think of the Golden Dawn, which the Golden Dawn was, you know, they were around during the Victorian era in England. You know, so back then they would have been considered modern magic. I consider them ceremonial magic as well, you know, because they have the Hermeticism, they have the Kabbalah, they have, you know, everything that makes ceremonial magic what it is, you know, like a system of grades. But I think that's probably one of the main reasons why people don't think that ceremonial magicians at all will work with infernal spirits because of the Golden Dawn. You know, I think, I mean, that's my opinion on it, but that sounds correct.
but
Yeah.
here is the thing, like there is a problem in occult circles. Because in the same way that like modern ceremonial right-hand path magicians have a distorted opinion about the black side, in the
Yeah.
same way the black side has completely distorted opinion about the right side.
Oh, I
I, I
100% agree with you on that.
so here is the thing. I never met ever one right hand path magician who fits in what left hand says about them. Like I never met that right hand path, judgmental fire and brimstone angel magician ever. Like this seems to be mythology, and nobody who is like right hand path is anti-demonic. But I actually saw a lot of left hand path motherfuckers who are 100% anti-angelic, and
Oh,
I think
I see that all the time. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, so can you tell us about like here is the thing. So what I want, let me kind of formulate a question. So do you think magic is a technology, which is like something you can verifiably test and get results? Or do you think it's about will and intent, as many modern magicians claim? Like, what's your opinion? Is it a technology or is it will and intent kind of stuff?
I do see it as a technology, but I think that I see it as a technology that will and intent does align with it, if that makes sense. um, it's always been a technology to me for many reasons, mainly because of my own personal experience with it. Because let's just give the example of ceremonial magic. People, many magicians before myself, through the centuries, have laid out protocols on how to summon an entity or a spirit, right? So they the definition of science, from my understanding, is someone does an experiment, it works, they take the evidence, present it to someone else who does the same thing, and it also works, and then they call that science. I call that also technology in a sense. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, it's a technology because the protocols have already been laid out. They've been laid out long before I have. However, with what's been laid out, with the technology itself, I'm able to experiment with it by using my will and intent with the technology, which makes it not like other technologies. I mean, everything is about your will and intent anyway. Does that make sense?
So, like, I one metaphor fell on my mind. So, a ritual is a transportation tool, right? It
Mm-hmm.
transports you from the world which is to the world that you desire. So, magical technology is the car, it is the vehicle, and will and intent is the fuel. So, if
Yes.
you put the fuel into a vehicle, you are simply spilling the fuel on the ground. But if you are using the vehicle without the fuel, I mean, you can push the vehicle using your own hands without accurate fuel, and it will go somewhere because it has the wheels, but it will not go as far as it should with the proper fuel and proper gas, if this makes any sense. That's kind of metaphor which came to my mind. But what I also wanted to kind of chat with you about shit. So like I say shit, you say shit, and kind of we meet in the middle. So
Right. Right.
so recently I started heavy Lilith work again, and I wanted to share this with the audience because this is important. So I go into heavy work with Lilith, and shit starts hitting the fan, and I raise my astral defenses. But as I raise my astral defenses, my life force invests itself into those defenses magically because I use my own life force to raise those defenses. And some shit happens to me, which I'm not gonna describe, but it's not pleasant experience. So what I wanna say is this. People don't understand that magic costs life force energy. And life force energy is not an abstract thing. It's a really living, breathing, sensible, detectable thing. And if you invest too much of your life force into magic, it can affect you negatively, right? Because you are literally depleting the essence of your being. So people really lack understanding nowadays that magic is not some form of a psychological mind game or some form of a psychological foreplay or some form of, I don't know, neuro-linguistic programming, whatever. All of those things play a part, but magic is in essence tampering and playing with the life force energy in a purest sense. And when you tamper with such a fundamental part of who you are, when you tamper with your own essence and essence of the world around you, there is nothing uh, playful about it. It's like saying, I am playing around with the nuclear reactor to see what will happen. So, dude, if you play with the nuclear reactor, you can create a bunch of radiation and kill people unintentionally. And I think the same level of seriousness should be applied to magic because more and more I practice it, I realize that more and more how serious it is, right?
Right.
And
I
the
agree.
thing, And the thing with magic is, since you are dealing with such a fundamental part of reality, it's inevitable for you to kind of fail sometimes. And that expectation that you somehow have to have 100% success ratio in order to be considered legit is really bullshit, because nobody has 100% success ratio. Everything which is about 60%, right, means that you know what you are doing. So 50%, 60%, you can attribute it to the coincidence or to the luck, right? But if you have success rate which is above 60%, so 70%, 80%, you are fine. Like, no matter how hard you try, there will be situations in which you can do absolutely nothing, right? So let's say, and what I came to realize is this: everybody has a different energy field, right? And with that different energy field comes certain set of skills. So everybody is good at directing certain kind of energy. For example, I am by nature a chthonic individual, which has a big affinity for the infernal. And if I work with any pagan pantheon out of the blue, I will get attracted to moon gods and to underworld gods. So moon and the underworld. If I ever try to work with anything else, which is not moon and the underworld, right? And the elementals. So moon, underworld, and the elementals, right? Those three things. If I ever work with any entity from any pantheon, which is not somehow related to this, I can summon the entity. I can work with the entity. I can conjure the entity. I can compel it to do something or make a deal, but it will not be as effective. Why? Because I am not a good conduit for kind of energy which doesn't correspond to me, right? So, because everybody is kind of conduit for certain forms of energy, you cannot be successful in everything. For example, let me give you my personal example. When I do curses, it works. When I do money spells, it works. When I do protection spells, it works. However, if I do, for example, love spells and be beloved by friends spells, it doesn't work. Why? Because my energy field doesn't correspond to that. You cannot like work with hardcore tonic energies all the time and then expect people to like you, right? It doesn't. It doesn't look. People
No.
can like, yeah. So people need to understand that spirituality is not Pokemon. You cannot be good at everything. You cannot please everybody, and you cannot be right every time. This is too complex of a field for us to be right every time. We need to be wrong sometimes, you know.
Hey,
And that's
I have a question for you. Like, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you, and because you have a Hindu background, Hindu Sanatana Dharma kind of experience. Do you like Kali Ma, Shiva,
how.
like those kind of energies, or?
Like, here is the thing. I worked with many spirits,
Mhm.
but if we want to say and name one spirit who taught me the most in shortest period of time, that would be Kali Ma, right?
Okay,
So
that makes
she is
sense. That makes sense.
so she
I can kind of see
so
that.
here is the thing. And like Krishna was also not Krishna. Krishna is like, I kind of don't like using word Krishna because of Hare Krishna association, right? I
Oh yeah.
like I like to use, so because Krishna is avatar of Vishnu. So essentially, when you talk about Krishna, you talk about the form of Vishnu. So
Yeah.
when I worked with that Krishna energy, I did only two rites with the guy, and like I had a vision of him. I never discussed this experience, but I will again because I think this is extremely important for many people. And like he comes to me in a vision and he plays a pipe with six of his brides, and you have white cows around him, like that infamous picture of him keeping the cows of bliss with his wives, playing the pipe, you know. And I talk to him, but I talk to him in an angry manner. And I say to him, how dare you create a caste system? How dare you create an oppression and this stratification and all of that? And like, he is like, look, he is like, look, not everyone can be the king. That's not possible, right? So, king is a king because there can be only one king. And below the king, you have the ministers, and and below the ministers you have another bureaucracy, and below them you have. So here is the thing, not everyone can be, pa ne mogu toliko tiho pričam, čovjeku. So not everyone can be in charge, right? We need to accept that not everyone can be the winner, and somebody is born to lose, right? Somebody is born to be at the bottom, and you kind of need to work with the energies you have genetically, physically, materially, and to be contained with the range of possibility you are born into, right? Because we are somehow conditioned to believe like that everybody can be a millionaire, that everybody can be a billionaire, that
Not
everybody,
possible.
yeah, that everybody can have a harem of quadrillion wives, or that every woman deserves a prince in a white Ferrari with a beautiful watch of $3 billion. And here is the thing: if you think about it, this is a masterfully crafted deception, right? Because here is the thing: people who are at the top, they know that not everybody can be at the top, but
They definitely know
they
that.
here is the thing, they convince everybody else that somehow you can also be at the top, that 7 billion people in the world can be at the top. So everybody destroys their bodies, their minds, their emotions in order to be at the top. And those who are actually at the top make more money, have more power, because they deluded the population that everybody can be like them. Everybody can be at the top of the hierarchy. And that's like absurd. And he kind of explains to me, if you believe that you can become a king, and if you convince everybody that they can be kings, what you are essentially doing is you are making all of them slaves. If you are born in the untouchable caste, right, then be the best of the untouchables, right? Don't try to be the best of kings, because you are not born to be the king. And we are not raised with this philosophical mindset. But if you really think about this makes perfect sense, right? Because if everybody is a king, then there is no kings, and there is no wealthy, and there is no powerful. And when there is no wealthy and powerful, and everybody is equally powerful, the only way it can be the case is if everybody has nothing, right? And if everybody can has nothing, then it's not what we want. We don't want everybody to have nothing, right? We want everybody to have something and enjoy this life. That's the point of this reality, right? So, and what Kali taught me, first and foremost, she kind of taught me that the left-hand path, the purpose of left-hand path isn't to make money or to fuck the bitches, uh, or to reach like some political power. The purpose of the left-hand path is for the people who cannot go right-handed way to still reach the union with you, right? And simply left-hand path is a methodology towards union with God, with union with the source. And he kind of explained how it operates and why it operates like this. And this is not what we find in modern left-hand path occultism. People lost understanding of what left-hand path means. It means path of the God, path to the God. through the darkness. It doesn't mean separation from God into the darkness, because there is no separation from God. God is everywhere, God is in everything, God is in the corpse, God is in the beautiful maiden, God is in the prostitute, God is in the raped individual, God is in the beggar, and God is within the king.
This is
So
true.
there
Yes, this
is
is
no
very true.
separation. There is no separation between the path of the beggar and the path of the king. And if you want to turn the beggar into a king, you are losing understanding that the beggar and the king are equally valuable. And if you want to become something you are not, for example, if I am born in a low class of a society, right? If I am born as a poor man and I am told that I should have an obsession in my life to become rich, right? That somehow I should be obsessed with wealth. I am taught that it is true. However, if everybody is obsessed with wealth, look at this. So, if 7 billion people are obsessed with wealth, what happens? So, not everybody can acquire that wealth, obviously, because
It's a
we are
game.
not, yeah, we are not equally skilled in obtaining it. What happens then? So we all fight among themselves for that wealth, and then only the few succeed, and then those who succeed oppress even more than those who were already there, right? And the cycle goes on and on. So instead of elevating the poor, we create even more poverty, right? So
Yeah. Not
it's
everybody
like,
can win the game, though. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. So it's like a rat race without any point, which not only destroys us, but also destroys nature, destroys the universe, destroys spiritual systems. Because in order for that rat race to exist, like, not only is it based on a false agenda, right? But also it has to create some form of pseudo spiritual system. So if you look at modern capitalism, right, it's a modern pseudo spirituality. So it has three holy scriptures. One holy claim is that there is only material plane. Everything else is fake and unproven. So entire spirituality is discarded, despite of the fact that spirituality is technically technology which can be replicated and tested by multiple people through millennia with the same results, but it is discarded because it doesn't fit into agenda. So that's first postulate. There is only material world. Another postulate is that there is infinite progress. Everybody talks about, like, the fact that we can somehow infinitely progress as a civilization, which is absurd. Resources on the planet are limited. Progress is limited because resources are limited, and progress cannot be maintained infinitely. That's another absurd. And the third absurd, which is the basis of modern society, is that somehow everyone is like equal, or society can accommodate everybody, and that we can somehow have some all-inclusive society which is like good for everyone. So those are three absurds of the modern world, and those three absurds, they are kind of topple themselves up, they destroy themselves, because if you believe that there is only material world, what happens is people start venerating pure matter, right? So then you try to spiritualize something which is not so spiritual, right? So people start worshiping the government, people start worshiping science, people start worshiping progress, people start worshiping, I don't know, corporations, people start venerating the directors. You probably noticed, like, those famous sports players or famous businessmen, they became like modern religious figures. So we don't have Jesus
It's
Christ
true.
anymore. Yeah, we don't have Jesus Christ anymore. We have Elon Musk, Cristiano Ronaldo, we have Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
Those are
Yes.
saints of capitalism.
Saint
Another
Jeff
absurd.
Bezos.
Yeah, yeah, say yeah, yeah. And like here is the thing about Elon Musk. People take him like the holy scripture. If Elon Musk says, "I will create underground tunnels for cars," which is like completely absurd. I mean, what's the point of putting the car through the underground tunnel? I mean, think about it. What are logistical nightmares of creating it when you have a metro station, right? 10 times cheaper and 10 times more effective. Like, uh, when you, what I also said, when you start to propagate infinite progress, right, and infinite profit, what happens is you destroy nature. And paradoxically, when you destroy nature, you make any actual possibility of progress, which is not infinite, which is logically impossible. Because if you destroy all of the natural resources, then obviously everything collapses, right? And
Right,
the
right.
third paradox is if you try to include everyone, you include no one. So the only way to include everyone is either to try to make everyone the same or to include no one because nothing is good enough for everyone, right?
Hmm.
So so you have a society which is based upon three contradictory self-destructive ideals which are in reality put in place so that people do absurd things and they are easily controlled. And what Kali told me is that it is important for so-called black magician to use his power to unify with the Brahman and to kind of forget material world, to detach from it, to use those dark energies to unify with the source. And that's what he was been teaching me, which is really interesting. And I wanted to share this with you. So, like, did you work with the Hindu gods, and what is your experience with them, if you had any?
I've only worked with a few. Like I have had Kalima manifest herself to me a few times, probably over a period of 12 years. I would say I've had maybe three or four occurrences from Kalima, mostly in meditation, but also in astral work. And like the gnosis that I remember that I can say that I've had like from that experience was always like kind of always sort of the same, but on different levels. So from my experience, like I felt like she was telling me that lots of things in this lots of things in this world are actually inverted. So many things that we consider dark are actually not dark, and the many things that people in society consider light are not exactly light. You know how people kind of because of the great influence of Christianity, which we spoke a little bit about that before, you and I have. Um, because of the great influence from Christianity, we have a lot of, we attach virtue to everything, right? So, like, if you give a homeless person some money, just to be kind, a lot of people in Western society will say that that's a Christian thing to do. A lot of people do worship this entity called government, this idea, this fictitious idea that's called government. So the gnosis that I was receiving before from calling mom on those multiple occurrences was that like lots of things that we place high value in society are actually not like the light per se. They're just institutions. Nothing is entirely light, nothing is entirely dark. There's like different grades of these ideas, but this is coming from a human idea. What else can I say really briefly is as far as like Hindu gods, it's very, very limited experience for me. Shiva, a few times I've had some manifestations of Shiva appear to me mainly through meditation, experiences with death as well, because there's been like lots of kind of death manifesting itself and within my own personal life with just losing a bunch of people and stuff though. And that was just all talking about like just like what we call destruction and what we call death isn't actually what we think it is. How you were saying in society, a lot of people worship money and materialism, and they worship the material world. How Kali Ma showed you what, that people place high value in material world, but many people are afraid of death. Most people in society have this idea that death is the absolute end, but it's not like that. When we talk about God with a big G, if I can say that, we're actually just talking about like an idea of something that is completely ongoing, something that doesn't have an end. And it's actually something that doesn't have a beginning to it as well. I know that this may not sound like the most elaborate experience that I've had, but as far as Shiva goes, Shiva is, to me, to what, from my understanding, from my experiences, Shiva is actually unmanifested potential. So in science, dark matter, which makes up most of the measurable known universe, so unmanifested potential. So that's what Shiva really is. Shiva is not just this God that destroys things so that it can be a beginning, but Shiva is also the potentiality in all things that exist. So that was the understanding that I got. So that's my very, very limited experience with Hindu deities.
So before ever talking about this, we technically had the same message coming through into different forms. So
Hmm.
it's like always interesting to notice when this happens. And what people don't understand is this. So everybody talks about left hand path, right? It became like a new edgy thing. Left hand path, abolish God, abolish Abrahamic slavery, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
And
it's quite
here,
like that, isn't it?
so and nobody kind of understands what was like original meaning of it. So if you go to India, you have Agori sects. I will
Right.
purposefully say not Agori sect because there is not one Agori. Agori is like a moniker for multiple sects of multiple cults of Hindu deities, which have similar philosophical premise. And all of them are Shaivists and all of them are Shaktists. So it's almost exclusively worship forms of Shiva and forms of Shakti. So what is the philosophical premise? The philosophical premise is that you can reach God through destructive acts and negative energy. That's philosophical premise, right? And the point is not to be edgy slaughterer. The point is to do that destructive acts, do that negative energy, and still be sane and capable of witnessing God. And the same thing is in the Old Testament when the Bilam talks to God. Like Bilam, sorcerer, idolater, the sorcerer of the foreign nations. He comes and like speaks to God directly, in the same way Moses does, or in the same way Elijah does, like, right? So the point is to do those destructive acts and still be sane enough to reach the Brahman and to reach the Brahman through those acts. And that's the point. Now, in order to do that, one needs to literally feed off negative energy enormously. And that overload with negative energy will create a reaction from your own system, which will break your consciousness and force you to witness the Brahman. So it's like this. Imagine your goal is to lift 500 pounds. So right hand path is like train yourself slowly until you're able to lift 500. And the left hand path is putting 500 pounds near yourself, then letting the bear out of the cage to run at you so you can pick up 500 pounds, throw them at the bear, and defend yourself.
Something
So,
like that, yeah.
yeah. And like people don't understand that is actually the point of the left hand path, right?
Hmm.
Controlled self trauma. This is like short definition of it. Controlled self trauma for the purpose of spiritual enlightenment. and people don't get it. So when their lives fall apart because they work with darker spirits, they, have all of those crazy theories, and they don't understand that it is the nature of the path. So I wanted to ask you what form of chaotic events or changes happened as a result of your work with the left-handed gods.
Oh, okay. So like personal experiences, you mean? Things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay. Again, I would just say that like not speaking so much for myself. I mean, I'll definitely get into that and answer your question, but I wanted to say like a lot of people from the Western paradigm, born outside of India, born outside of those cultures that understand things like agories and all of that, seem to be drawn to catonic energy and the left-hand path because a lot of people just saw had experiences with a lot of darkness early on in life. A lot of abuse, things like that, a lot of chaotic energy like within the households that draw them towards those kinds of things. For me, it was sort of similar a little bit too, but like I said before, like what personally manifested to me early on was things like death, things like I had experiences as a kid, as a child, to where I was very I don't want to say I was like born psychic or anything like that, but when I was very young, I've been an artist my whole life. I'm a visual artist, and a musician, martial artist, things like that. But I had a lot of very scary images manifest to me early on, like 5, 6, 7 years old in those times. I just always liked dark things. I've always liked horror movies, metal music early on. But I would say that my main experiences, though, were just loss, just dealing with loss early on in my life, losing people close to me, um, friends of mine dying, committing suicide, things like that. And when I began to go into a more spiritual direction, I would try to look at examples that most of us would consider right hand path, things like saints. I would read books like Rumi and the Gnostic scriptures of Jesus and things like that. And they did help in many ways. I've tried Buddhism, Zen Buddhism for a while, quite a while actually. But I would always find myself walking towards the shadows of things because it made more sense that there was light contained within the dark, within the shadows itself. And like you were saying, that God isn't in everything. God with the big G is in the prostitute, is in the beggar, is in the murderer. I began having a lot of experience when I started going into a spiritual direction. I began being gravitated towards magic, and when I started looking into magic and reading grimoires, it was always things that are dark, because it just made sense to my awareness, to my psyche, that if I wanted to find, okay, first of all, let me just start. I know I'm kind of babbling a little bit, so forgive me, audience, but if I want to become a more compassionate human being, let's just say, how society promotes this whole thing about being nice. Well, the more I would look into the dark, I would find that being nice isn't always the best answer, because we live in the wilderness. Everybody lives within a society where people are trying to take from you, give, take, things like that. I would just find that when I would do certain rituals that we would call like left hand path, like shadow rituals, I had to get comfortable with the primordial essence. I had to get comfortable with like accepting myself as an imperfect human being. The right hand path type of philosophy, I guess you could say, would promote me trying to be perfect at all costs, because we venerate people that are like saints, and we think that saints are always perfect and never make mistakes. But within this particular part of my path, it was okay to fuck up a lot. It was okay to am I making sense? It was okay to like not do everything 100% correct. In fact, I had to do it like that in order for me to find like the light ablazing within my own self, within my own mind, that I had to like fuck up. I had to like be that way. Hope that makes sense. But
Yeah, so here is the thing. I want to address because you kind of said your journey from right hand path. So then you saw the shadows, then you understood the light within the shadows, and then
mhm.
you wanted to retrieve the sparks from the husks of darkness and study
Yes,
the wisdom of the night side. That's kind of what you told me, and that's
yes, yeah,
the journey majority of us had. But here is the thing. I gonna propose one really controversial statement here. I personally think that majority of people who work with demonic not only shouldn't work with demonic, but they shouldn't work with anything. Like there is lots of people who go to demons just because they think that all of occultism is from demons. And as soon as they are not satisfied with modern religion, they go to the demons and to the demonic. And I think it is really dangerous thing because they don't understand what they are summoning, they don't understand what they are doing. And not only are they destroying themselves, but they are also misrepresenting the things they are working with. Here is the thing. If you see Lilith exclusively as a compassionate mother figure, you are simply projecting your own mommy issues onto the entity, right? If you see Satan only as a compassionate father, you are projecting your own daddy issues onto the entity. And that's really dangerous. One of the reasons I put on private all of my older videos is because in those older videos, there was a phase in which I literally said, Lilith is mother of beautiful war monsters, and everybody who says it isn't true is spreading Judeo-Christian propaganda and shit. And right now, I will tell you that it is one of the most stupid and absurd sentences everybody in history pronounced, right? So it was completely inaccurate. And the reason why it is inaccurate is those are really primordial forces, and you cannot expect primordial force to be nice guy. It doesn't matter what you are summoning, angel, demon, elemental, whatever. You cannot expect that primordial force outside of human existence to be nice, to move exclusively through the lens you like and through the means you like, right? And all of those people who project their own daddy, mommy issues onto the entities, they are not only exposing themselves to enormous danger, but they are also misrepresenting what they are working with. And I personally think that a lot of people who go into mental hospital because of magic should be prevented from going insane through correct education. So, what's your opinion? How we can educate people on spirits and shit? Because that's the question I ask myself a lot. How to educate people? Because I consider my educational work to be absurd, right? Because there is so much misinformation out there that I simply stopped caring about educating others, and I feel overwhelmed. I simply want to stop educating. I want to stop publishing. I want to stop filming because I see no point, right? Because I don't know how to present information in a way which will really say the truth about the things, right?
Well, I think you're doing a great job, in my opinion, about it. I mean, you're doing what you need to do. Both you and I are content creators. I have a podcast. You have your channel, and we're sharing information and getting people on to have these experiences. But to answer your question, it starts with the the potential magician. I had a hard time saying it starts with the magician. Not everyone identifies with that term, but it starts with the person, though. Of course, like getting into magic, especially dark magic. Like I would say, like right, like my example, like you had the example of the dumbbell, lifting the 500 pounds. I'm gonna say that like working with dark magic is like having a machine gun that has no safety on it. You know what I mean? It's like if somebody
Yeah.
wants to go out and fire rounds from a machine gun with no safety and no training, it's their responsibility. Like there's only so much that we can tell them to be careful and tell them, to research and learn about it before you can take it apart properly. And then they're going to go off and shoot it and hopefully not have an accident. I've heard so many different stories of people like getting into summoning demons, and then they summon like too many at once, and then they have a psychological breakdown. I've heard things like that. Um, I would just say, and when I present my information from my channel, my podcast, I always end the episode by saying like happy summoning. I kind of joke about that, but I say do it safely. You know, but people need to just start with themselves. They need to know like why are they drawn to this in the first place? Like where does it come from? I don't consider myself an expert. I definitely have experience. I've been into this for a while, but there's always more to learn. I don't consider myself a master at it anyway, but if I was to meet somebody that was interested into getting into this path, and they wanted to know some advice or something, if I can offer them advice, I would just say like, know why you're getting into it in the first place. Like, are you getting into this because you were raised in a Lutheran Christian family and you hate your religion and you want to get away from anything that looks remotely Abrahamic, which is a lot of people? Or is there like something unexplainable why you're drawn to this? You actually feel that this kind of information can really help you. It can help bring out the best version of who you are and then here in the present moment. You know, it's not an easy path and it's never going to be easy, especially in the beginning. Facing your shadows is very painful. It's the process of being ripped apart like that is not easy for anybody. So I think, in my opinion, I would say that a lot of people who get involved in this path and make all these different mistakes because they may carry a lot of pride. Maybe they may be overconfident because I live in the United States, and in the United States, one of the mistakes of a lot, not generalizing everybody, but a lot of people here, is that here in the United States, people are very addicted to excess. They like to be extreme. When they go out to a bar and drink alcohol, they won't have a little bit, they have a lot. When they do drugs, they won't do a little, they'll do a lot. you know so part of that could be cultural baggage, it could be subtle programming, things like that. But the I would just say one way we can avoid that is, as content creators, as people who share information, is just to remind people not to be excessive about these kinds of things and to know why they're getting involved in it. They, if to know like why they want to summon spirits, why they want to summon the infernals, because it's not something that should be done just to empower yourself in order to influence someone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But like, what's your stance on uh, how to phrase it? Give me a few seconds.
Sure.
What's your stance on like summoning spirits to physical materialization? How physical is that? Because
Summoning
like,
spirits for what now? For physical reasons?
no, for physical, no, summoning spirits to physical materialization. Like spirit,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I mean, my opinion is it's I don't look at it as like a good thing or a bad thing. I think it just depends on the person who's doing it. I think it just depends on the summoner. Like I would say, like if they have enough like if they have enough experience with the techniques and with the technology, and they have like what they feel is like a real purpose for doing it. Yeah, I don't see a problem for it at all. But again, doing it to that level could be a lot of consequences, and it could be catastrophic if they're not careful. And it can even damage them if they don't do it properly for the right purposes. It can't be good for them. It can because energies like this are like demons are definitely not evil, and this is something I say all the time on my podcast. They're not evil. I repeat it a lot, but they're more feral compared to like the angelic spirits. Demonic energies are very much more feral. So I would compare like an angel to like, this is a really really bad example, but I'm going to use animals for an example here, like a very well behaved dog, and then you have a wild wolf or something, those two, like it's something more like that. And everybody wants to jump to the wolf, which is almost untamable, or in most cases, very untamable. This is why we have, like in the stories of King Solomon, working with the 72 jinn or the 72 goetic spirits, encasing them in brass, like that. That's metaphorical to how feral these beings are. So that's my stance on it. My stance is that it's nothing wrong with doing it. It's just like the person just needs to have a defined purpose and hopefully enough training and familiarity with the technology before they even would do that. But the problem I see often is that, the first several months to a year, people get into this, they fall in love with this so quickly, and they become overconfident. And let's face it, the demons are much more glamorous to work, to most people than angelic spirits, and they feel very confident. So they just want to go and summon them all at once and whatnot, and then they don't get the results that they're looking for. So
So exactly, that's what I wanted to say earlier. Like, you need to understand which energies are compatible with you and wield those energies. Like, you cannot wield every energy everywhere. That's not possible. So, like, what I also wanted to ask you is how, because you told me you conjure spirits into crystals before, right? Or
yeah, I have. Yeah.
so let's say I want to conjure spirit into the crystal. What are the things I should do to prepare, and what are the things to expect in a ritual? Because like, is it like you physically see face in a crystal, or images start flashing in your mind from the crystal, or what exactly happens? Because like, I don't know. Don't be offended, my dear friend, but like those stereotypical like descriptions of you literally seeing physical 3D face in a crystal yelling at you from it. It looks cartoony. It looks cartoony to me. Like, can you explain to me what actually happens? If I am wrong, I will gladly be corrected here.
Oh no, no, it's fine. So within the example I'm going to give is scrying. Okay, like say like a scrying ball, something like that. For me personally, it's not. So okay. I'll start from the very very top. So the way I do it, and it's different from the way other magicians do it. Like because when we talk about different methods, right? You have the Solomonic method, and then you have demonolatry. They're very different, right? So I'm coming from the more the Thelemic side of it, and then within the Lima, there's like a mix, like both right hand and both left hand are pretty much accepted. It just depends on the magician. So my preparations would be cleansing and then calling on holy divine names, because I'm not afraid to do that. I don't. There's nothing that's bad in that way for me. Now, a demonologist, a person who works with infernal spirits, but they may, a lot of them that I see kind of shun the Shem angels and the names of God and anything that's remotely Kabbalic, and that's okay because everybody's entitled to do what they want to do. they will just go straight into invoking the infernal spirits, invoking the demons without any kind of circle, without any kind of protection, any kind of names of God. So my preparations would always be to start high and work my way down. And what I mean by that is I could just simply say doing things like calling certain Shem angels, calling angelic spirits, invoking certain names of God. And then once that is done, going into the scrying crystal and then, just invoking that way. Now, to answer your question, like exactly to try and make sense of it, it sounds very cartoony and kind of cheesy, right? You're doing scrying and you're supposed to see some kind of scary face staring at you through the reflection. It's nothing like that. At least for me, it's never been anything like that. It's always just been um, just another way of gaining gnosis, gaining information, because this is technology, and with this technology, what are we doing ultimately? We're pulling information out of the ethers. We're pulling information out of different parts of the universe, different aspects of our own minds as well. Since all of it is everything is mind, so that's the way it's always been with me. Now I can't speak for everyone else, obviously. Some people may have experiences where they look and scry into the mirror or into a crystal or something like that, and they see like little faces and things like that. I mean, I've had plenty of, you know, physical manifestations, but to me, those types of things happen in like astral experiences, out of body, astral traveling, things like that. So, but within, as far as like crystals are concerned, it's never been like that. It's always just been like gaining gnosis, maybe hearing, seeing kind of internal with the internal eye. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. So it's not like in cartoons, like when Count Dooku speaks to Dark Sidious and like Dark Sidious appears like a hologram. Did you ever watch the movies? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I know where you're talking. It's never been like that for me. I mean, those types of things. I mean, I've heard people say that it has been for them, but for me, it's never been the case. It's always been. I mean, I consider myself a very visual person. I'm an artist, so art as I don't know if it's because I'm an artist that I'm able to be very visual, have a very wild imagination, always have, so one would think that that would be my experience, like seeing something physically before me just manifest out of nowhere like that. But it hasn't been like that. It's always just been a very deep sense of knowing. I call it gnosis, where you're learning right then and there in that moment, and you're just gaining such information, and it doesn't come in the same way as you just imagining it, and I have experience with this a lot, and I have a lot of experience in other areas. I've done psychedelics and had ayahuasca ceremonies years ago where I would visually see things, but that was an influence from the psychedelic or the psychotropic plants, so I know what that would feel like seeing something manifest before me that way. But doing these types of rituals, it has never happened like that for me though, But in experiences where I have had, I could just say more out of body experiences, astral kind of things. I have seen lots of things, but I would have to be more out of my body for that. So if that makes sense.
So I understand what you are saying. So more or less, like people watch too many cartoons. We can have that common conclusion. People really watch too much Dragon Ball Z. Like,
Well, it sounds impressive to say that. Like a lot of people want to, intuitively they want to, or subconsciously, I mean, they want to impress someone else with their experiences. I rarely talk about my experiences with these kinds of things, to be honest. I mean, I'm doing it now because you're interviewing me, so I have no problem with it, But like off camera, I hardly tell anybody about what information I get or what my experiences are. I write them down for myself and then I look back at them, later on. But I think most of the time it's because people they feel they want to validate their practices and to make them more validated. They're like, yeah, I did a ritual with Kali and she stood before me with her 108 arms dangling off her neck or reaching out and grabbing me. And they say these kinds of things. And I'm not saying that those things are not possible to happen. Who am I to like put someone's experiences down? But I think more often than not, from my experience of just engaging with other people about these kinds of things, they just want to they're quick to validate themselves, so they want to sound impressive, so they want to make these things sound very big and impressive. And for me it's never really been like that. They've always been more subtle. But just because they're subtle doesn't mean that they're not valid or that they're not powerful.
So here is the thing. Like, what I wanna say is, so through talking to you, like like this is a little bit controversial question, but everybody, when people read Aleister Crowley, like the main thing they read most about majority of people is like sex magic and him fucking goats and shit. What's like what's like your experience with sex magic, and do you practice it, and what's your stance on that?
Oh, sex magic.
Yeah.
I've never done it. I've never actually had the desire to do it personally. I don't know why. I mean, I like sex, but I've never done sex magic. I like magic and I like sex, but I've never decided to mix the two. My stance on it is, um, why not? Like, I think it will be fine to do it. However, again, it comes down to, why. It comes down to intent. Why would a person want to do it? And it also comes down to like how a person does it. And again, like, I would say that if one was going to do that, they would want to have a partner that was really into magic. Like my significant other isn't into it as much as I am. She doesn't practice it like the way I do. So she's open minded about it. She's very accepting of me doing it, but she's not like doing it every day and stuff like that. So and I'm okay with that, and she's okay with me doing it. But my stance on it is like, why not? Like, if you really love that system, and you have a deep draw and an intent to do it, you are confident with the safety measures it would take. And if you were to understand how the sexual energy is and how it usually gets wasted amongst most people, if a person was able to cultivate that properly and they had a partner that was disciplined enough, I would say go for it. But again, because it involves sex, because it involves sexual energy, it's going to be very misunderstood. And most societies, especially our society, sex is extremely misunderstood. A lot of people don't know the value of sexual energy and how to properly harness that, how to properly use it. Most people don't have a clue about it. Sex is either like a pastime to, fulfill a desire within that moment for most people. Mostly that's what it is. Or sex is something that's just for having children, you know, for people. And that's really it. Just depends on the person. The religious mindset would say that it's to be shared between a person that you love of different sexes and all these different things. It's a very misunderstood energy. It's kind of like, I'm sure you may agree with me on this. It's like when someone says the word tantra. Why is it that when we bring up the word tantra, they think of sex? Tantra has very little to do with that. you know, the only reason why sex is mentioned is because within tantric traditions, it's okay to include that in certain practices. When the more right hand path practices within yoga, they would either prohibit sex or they would very much cut down on it. And tantra was more open to it being included in practices. But we in the West have really just think we really kind of think that that's what Tantra is all about. And so yeah, anyway, sex magic is very misunderstood as well. So yeah.
So my take on this is the following. So magic works with life force. If you are a male, you know that the subject we discussed a few moments earlier is extremely depleting in life force. So
Definitely.
what I wanna say, like sex magic that has this like relaxed, non-serious uh, charm in the occult community. Like when you say sex magic, it's like when you say tarot reading. It doesn't have serious note of danger and power attached to itself. People see it like practical sex. Like sex magic is seen as sex with a practical undertone. And what people don't understand is that any operation which involves sex magic is 10 times more draining than regular sex, which says a lot. So it's a really dangerous thing to do, really dangerous thing to engage in, which bears so many risks that I need to say to the audience that this is something you should study really carefully before trying. So my last question for you is, what do you think about Kundalini? Do you have any advice regarding that?
Oh, oh man, that's a really big subject. So bear with me. I may ramble on for a little bit. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so first of all, the main thing I can say about Kundalini is a caveat, which I've told many people half my age. I'm over 40 now, so I have some experience with some of this stuff. So do not, I repeat, Kundalini is not a game. It's not something to be rushed. We have within our society, with the induction of Eastern techniques and we're open information about yoga that we have, which is again, yoga is very misunderstood practice, very misunderstood, continues to be misunderstood. And when people talking about Kundalini, they want to raise it because they want to be more spiritual. They want to reach a state of enlightenment because they feel that if they reach the state of enlightenment, they can be all that they need to be in life. And a lot of them have this idea that once they reach this state of enlightenment, they're finished. They're done with this life. They can only just remain being spiritual for the rest of this life, whatever that means to them. But Kundalini is not a game. It's something that can be extremely dangerous if done improperly. So I would just say, I mean, I can really say a lot on Kundalini, but don't try and rush the process. It's something that needs to take time. It takes years. There's no way a person is going to go through the full process in 9 months or even 9 years. You know, um, it is a part of our evolutionary way of being. Kundalini is something that everybody has innate within themselves. I would say that even within practicing magic, since magic itself tends to uncover different aspects of our consciousness, and we gain gnosis from practicing magic, we become more aware of ourselves, different aspects of ourself in the universe. One of the side effects of that is understanding that there is nothing inherently outside of ourself when we practice magic. Everything is actually happening within our own universe, which is our true identity, and Kundalini is a result of that, whether we are aware of that or not. I think that it's coming from like looking at it from a left-hand path perspective. I would think that Kundalini is very important. Because there is a symbol of the serpent there. The serpent is very valuable, especially for anybody in the audience that practices draconic magic, which I don't practice, but I'm familiar with it on some level. But these kind of
Interesting.
things. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I am good. I am good. So, oh, yeah, yeah, I am good. So, technically, like I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. It's not a game, but do you have any like practical advice for working with the Kundalini? Because what
Yes.
I,
Mhm. Oh,
yeah,
go ahead. You want me to know my like my practical advice with it? Yeah. If I can offer any practical advice, I would just say practicing really simple breath work exercises, because one of the things that I don't hear a lot of within the occult community is the working with energy, like chi, actually working with it. We talk a lot about rituals, talk about a lot about magic and the technology of it itself. We even talk about meditation a lot, but I don't hear a lot of talk about how to actually do it. So that's why I always try my best to educate and say that practicing simple breathing exercises are very useful for that, because this way we can allow the kundalini to do its thing without us um, interrupting that process. I mean, yeah, you hear about kundalini yoga and kundalini breathing and things like that, and people wearing their head wrapped up and doing the the fire breath and eating garlic and all that shit. But the only practical advice I can really offer here is just to simple exercises. Practice. I recommend practicing some sort of exercises that involve cultivating energy or chi. Qi gong. You're going to hear the word chi. I do that. I've been doing it for a very long time. It's a daily practice for me for doing that. Being aware of the spinal column itself and just breathing, but not trying to rush, just allowing the process, because when you do magic, since it works on a psychological level, it's just going to happen anyway on its own without you really rushing it. Every time you do a magical, like a certain magical rituals, like the LBRP, for instance. I know like magicians like Damien Eccles talk about how it crystallizes the aura, which I agree with. But these kind of things also help change our awareness. They help refine our awareness, and so that we can be in touch with more subtle parts of reality. So yeah, just practicing some sort of simple energy exercises, like some sort of breathing. If people want to know what kind of breathing, I would say reverse embryonic breathing. For those of you listening, look that up. Reverse embryonic breathing is very simple. You can do it at work on your break, for a little bit, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. You don't really need to do it more than that, but an exercise like that is very good for Kundalini.
thank you. I will check what reverse embryonic breathing is. This is the first time I am hearing the term. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes when I talk to people, I feel like a damn bass because they talk about shit which I definitely know nothing about.
It's
And
okay. Oh, I have one more thing I want to say too. So reverse embryonic breathing and another very simple breathing exercise is called the microcosmic orbit. I recommend doing those. You can do them together or separate. It's okay. They're both are gentle enough to do that. But I forgot though that the microcosmic orbit really really helped me, because I want to really give quickly. I had some experiences with Kundalini as much as 4 years ago. So in 2017, I was hit on my bicycle and I had to go to the hospital. I was able to walk and do things like that. My body healed very quickly, but I was having some really strange experiences with Kundalini after that. And when it was just my accident, it wasn't from me doing my exercises that I've been doing for years prior to my accident. But what was happening was I would get really weird sensations in my spine. I would go to sleep at night and I would just feel like a snake is like crawling at my back. I would see geometric shapes out of my eyes. I would wake up. I would be asleep and I would wake up and I would just see different colors and weird shapes, and I would get like electric uh, things happening in my back. It was really strange, and this went on for probably about 2 months after my accident. And what I remember in my notes from being taught qigong exercises for many years was to practice the microcosmic orbit. So the microcosmic orbit, I can quickly tell you what that is. You can look it up on YouTube, even but it's a breathing exercise where you are, because we have a yin circuit and a yang circuit. So the yang circuit is on the back, the yin circuit is in the front. So we have a channel that goes like a conveyor belt. In the front of her body, it goes down. In back of her body, it starts at the perineum and it goes up. So what you do is you can look it up, but I'm gonna briefly tell you how to do it. You start at the dantian, which is where the navel is, inside the navel, about a couple of inches back, and you want to go ahead and breathe, moving the energy up the middle of the spine to the crown of the head. They call it the Bai Hui point in Chinese, down in front like that, and you just kind of move it like that. That is probably the best exercise for anybody that has misaligned kundalini. And again, I'm not a master, but I'm a very experienced person. I am a qigong instructor. I've been teaching it for maybe about 12 or 13 years, but I've been practicing it for about 20 years, So I have some experience in that area, but that is one that can help misaligned. If anybody suspects that they may have some misaligned kundalini energy, that can help as a microcosmic orbit. And then daily maintenance, do the reverse embryonic breathing. So,
Yeah. Like here is the thing.
mm.
So I filmed the second interview with only one purpose to kind of discover what the big thing you know. And now I finally get what you know. Like I definitely felt that you are really, really knowledgeable regarding something. I simply didn't knew what was that one thing. Now I
Oh,
know.
what was
Because
my area
here,
of expertise?
yeah, now I know. So yeah, maybe we should talk later about this to kind of film part three exclusively about Qigong and shit.
Oh yeah, I
I
can
just
I can go on all day about that, man. I've been doing that for a really long time. So yeah, anytime anything you want to know about qigong, because like as a person who does practice magic, I find that it's very helpful to do that. You know, yeah.
so here is the thing. So I'm gonna help you, and I'm gonna help myself as well because I am a selfish motherfucker. So I had recently a vision. So technically, what the vision was, I was in the underworld. In the
Hmm.
underworld, there was a tree, and I go below the tree, and I start drinking the waters which feed the roots of the tree.
Hmm.
And then from the ground in the distance, where the waters are running from, comes one of the old gods of the Slavs, the god of sorcery and poetry and the underworld. Motherfucker comes and then he kind of puts his hand above my head. And I feel enormous amounts of energy from the ground entering through my legs all up to my crown. And that's like, can you like help me to explain to understand the vision from the qigong perspective? So let me describe to you where it kind of flew.
Okay.
So this kind of flew like this. So I felt like tentacles which are coming out of my feet into the ground, but I had a feeling that those tentacles are possessed by everyone and they are active all the time. So some form of energy pathways from the feet into the ground,
Hmm.
and then from those pathways the energy came into the feet, and then it kind of came through some channel which is like within a leg, but it's like in the middle of a leg, like there is some form of a channel which comes from the center of the feet through the middle of the leg into the hips, then from both of the hips it kind of connects at genital organs, and then
Oh.
it rises up from the genital organs up through the spine into the crown part,
Hmm.
and then it kind of goes up, right?
Hmm.
So like what exactly I felt? What the fuck happened? I kind of have my theory, but honestly, I don't have any idea about tree pathways. That's like not my expertise at all. I am retard about qigong. Don't ask me about like I don't know.
Oh no, you're fine. I mean, honestly, like it reminds me of two things. What you told me, it reminds me of the map of the tree of life that we have. You know, which to map it up. I mean, all these different mystical traditions they use trees because trees are a perfect model of the human body, but also the universe itself. So I think like your vision that you had is sort of like it's like a very integrated map. You know, I mean, it was your experience, and I can't speak for you, but if it were me having that same experience, I would interpret it as like the microcosm and the macrocosm because we're essentially like a micro universe, you know. So like the when you were saying like the going from the middle of the feet to the middle of the leg, anything above the middle of the leg is like that's above, you know, like as above so below basically, you know. And it goes to the middle of the hips, so that's like the the tree of life already, so it's like the yesod, right, the foundation. And then it goes all the way back up to Kether or the crown. So to me, that's just a model of the human body. The human body is very similar to like a tree. You know, like we're always pulling energy from the underworld up and connecting to heaven or Tian in Chinese, you know? So I just literally just see it as a map of reality. That and you're the microcosmic version of that. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And it's also telling you how to cultivate energy too, I think, you know, because we can use our legs as roots to pull energy from below, you know, just like when you do rituals like say the again, I guess I'm going to use the LBRP for people. I know that may be a little too right hand pathy for some people, but it's a very powerful ritual, you know. So when you're doing a ritual like that, you know, you can literally connect. You don't really have to siphon energy from below you, but when you do the Malkuth part, the Malkuth, your feet are like between your ankles or Malkuth, you know, that area. So you can use like a beam of light going through the body to that and just have that light. But I like to kind of, you know, when I have performed it going even below where the ankles are, you know, like the earth is below you, you know, and having it going all having the light just connect all the way down and anchored much deeper than that though, and then from the head all like as high up as you can possibly go. You know, these things work really well for us if we can learn to integrate our energy like that. So yeah, I think it's a map. You know, you were having an experience of the map when you do qigong practice. That's your everyday thing. Your everyday experience will be that what you just described.
yeah. But I have one last, really, really last question because I have to go. So, like, this will be two questions, but it will kind of be one. So what do you think is the main misunderstanding of qigong today in the West? Because today everybody is like energy worker and everybody does qigong, and I see like I am not a qigong expert, but my bullshit meter goes from 0 to 100 a lot of the time when I hear those people. So, what do you think is the main misunderstanding about qigong today?
Oh man, there's so many, but but I know you got to go. I would just say that one of them is just a lot of people pretend to know what energy and chi is, and they really don't know what it is. So because we also have Reiki, which is very different way of practicing it than the qigong. I would just say, from my experience, um, people really tend to make chi out to be they over mystify what chi is, and at the same time they make lots of different mistakes because every act that we do involves some kind of chi, and 9 out of 10 times people are wasting it. They're wasting it on lots of things. So in instances, chi, I'll quickly wrap this up. Chi is an abundance and it is infinite. However, the receptor of the chi, which is the human body, is not infinite. It's not infinite, you know, like so an example is somebody who gets into practicing qigong, they may be like, well, I'm pulling in lots of beautiful, clean chi into my body, you know. And then they go to the bar and they fucking pound like 12 beers and do all these tequila shots and they feel like shit the next day. And they're thinking that their qigong should have fixed that, and it's not like that because the body itself, you know, there are channels in the body that continually heal, but you have to turn on those mechanisms by refining the practice over and over and over. It doesn't happen overnight like that. So that's a big misconception, is that the finite body and the infinite chi, they're not working correctly. You know, people don't. I mean, I just, as usual with everything like qigong and magic, I just see lack of discipline. I see this is something I see in everything. Psychedelics, people talk about how they're interested in all these different things, but they lack discipline. They're not willing to really do it. They just talk about it, do a little bit of it, and once or twice, and then they're an expert. So
Yeah.
so in order to practice properly, drink water more. Don't just drink a lot of alcohol. Like eat good foods if you can, because the body itself is a receptor of all that. And
So
that's what I like to say
yeah,
about it.
yeah. I agree with you, and like definitely we will have part three. Expect
Excellent.
part one. Expect part one to be uploaded like this week.
Cool.
So I will send you the link once it is like uploaded, and talk to you soon. I
Okay, man.
finally I finally nailed your expertise. So I kind of have like a proposition for you. So I kind of have one really good friend of mine who is like Reiki healer for more than 15 years.
Mhm.
So, and I have you who is like Tai Chi, not Tai Chi, but Qigong master for like more than a decade.
I do Tai
So
Chi too. Yeah, I do that too.
yeah, but
Yeah,
here is the thing. So when I hear about Tai Chi, my like bullshit meter goes to from 0 to 100,
I
because
understand.
people claim that Dragon Ball is possible, that you can do Kamehameha with Tai Chi and kill somebody like with kind signs like Naruto and shit. Like, is
Yeah,
there any truth to that?
to
Like,
like what, shooting a fireball out of your hand?
yeah. Is it,
I've
what?
I've never heard of it. There are some amazing things that one can do with chi. I will say there are some amazing things, but like doing Dragon Ball shit, man, that's not. If you like, put it this way, if a person were to actually do that, more than likely they would die doing it. Seriously, they heat the body that much to do that. Like chi can warm the body. Like tumo, you've heard of it, tumo in Tibet, right? The heating, that's very possible. That people, that's very common. Lots of people do that, but actually projecting like in the physical plane a fireball, I it's highly unlikely that that can happen because you would probably die doing it.
You killed my childhood dream. I watched Naruto my entire childhood, and then I know it's impossible. I cannot do a fireball jutsu. So
Well,
thank you
there's many
for
amazing things you can do with chi, though. Trust me, there are many amazing things you can do. But a fireball, unfortunately, in this plane of reality, it's not likely.
yeah. So thank you for being the guest. Talk to you soon, and
Thanks,
see
man.
you
All
later.
right, I'll see you later.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.